Hello, and welcome to the Strategy Made Simple podcast. I'm Matthew Rempel, and today we're talking about social media, how to do it, how it's changed over the last 10 plus years, how marketing is basically just fancy storytelling, and finally, how you can use it in a social enterprise to help build up your business. Joining me today is Alyson Shane, and I'm going to let her pick up from there.
So I am the president of Starling.social. We are a full-service digital marketing agency located right here in Winnipeg. So as a full-service agency, we offer kind of the gamut. I started off doing copywriting and some social media management, and I can talk a little bit about my own history in a little bit if you want, but basically within a year, I had to scale out and start bringing people onto the team. So our offerings have expanded from social media and copywriting to we do Google advertising, social media ads, obviously. We have website partners that we work with in order to help deliver on those things. Email marketing. I mean, like I said, it kind of runs the gamut. But yeah, it's been a pretty wild ride. And even though I'm a big believer in staying in your lane vis-a-vis the services that you offer, we've really honed in on the things that we're good at. And I'm just tremendously proud of the work that we do and to be able to lead such a fine team.
It's always good to have a good team.
I have the best team.
Actually, let's start there. You described how within a year you had to scale up and scale out. You yourself had which specialty?
I started doing copywriting and social media management because I kind of grew up on the internet.
Yeah, we're going to get back to that later.
Yeah.
But so you have to expand out. You have more work than you can do on your own.
Yep.
I mean, that's usually the impulse for that.
Yeah.
So what's it like figuring out that you need a team and then actually building it?
Scary.
Agreed.
Honestly, no. I'm a bit of, I think to find yourself in a position where you're managing a business, you kind of have to be like a bit neurotic and maybe a bit of a control freak. And I hold, especially because I have a writing background, I hold the content that my team produces to a very, very high standard. And so I remember feeling like, oh God, the quality of the work that I'm able to do is starting to slip because I'm so overworked and I have too much work on my plate. And luckily for me, I had been speaking to Crecom students for a long time. I know several people who work in communications. So I was able to tap them and just basically say to them, I'm looking for somebody. Do you know anybody? And I was connected with a couple of really, really talented people right from the get-go who were able to take some of that stuff off my plate and allowed me to focus on growth and scale. And I still handled some of the day-to-day client relations in terms of some of those deliverables for a while because control freak, like I said. But these days, I basically just run the business and my team interface with our clients day to day. And I'm CC'd on every email. Again, it's because we're a remote agency. It's really important to me to feel like I have my thumb on the pulse of the company, even if we're not physically in the same space all the time. So I'm CC'd on every single email, and we use a project management tool called Trello, that basically it acts as a hub essentially for our clients. So we have one for every client that we manage our social media for, and their account managers and copywriters, whoever else is on the team, to interface. All of the approvals and things get done there. I'm a big believer that email chains are where details go to die. So this gives them a hub where they can collaborate. We have a history of everything that's there. And I'm CC'd on every single update from Trello also. So, and as an inbox zero person, it gets a little much sometimes, but it's worked out so far. We've been doing this for 10 years and we've got a pretty good flow going.
Yeah, I was just thinking, as somebody who receives 50 some emails a day, the CC on every email, that sounds like 1,000, and just trying to clear that up to understand what's going on and where the important things are, that'd be definitely a task.
It's basically the first thing I do every morning because otherwise I'm like, I look at my inbox and I just go cross-eyed.
Yep. Yeah. So I'd love to get a little bit of your personal story about how you ended up in first freelance and then now running a digital marketing agency.
Absolutely.
So what was the path that took you to where you are now?
So forgive me, anyone who works with me knows I talk forever without stopping, so this is going to be a little bit of meandering. I've actually been publishing content online since I was 12. I had a GeoCities, then a LiveJournal, then a blog like blogger.com, and then I was on WordPress. I identify as a writer, and I always knew I wanted to do something in comms. But I didn't really know what. So I went to the University of Winnipeg. I studied rhetoric, writing, and communications. So I studied persuasive language. But I also grew up pre-social media. So as, Facebook was starting to become a thing and Twitter, oh gosh, I miss Twitter.
Oh, me too.
I know we were just
It's just
lamenting
not the
about
same.
this. But I remember feeling like, okay, these are connective tools that are going to be something I need to understand.
Yeah.
I do not have a marketing degree. I've never studied marketing. Everything that I know about my industry, and I know a lot, is all hands-on. So I graduated from the University of Winnipeg, and I did a couple of volunteer gigs here and there. I was the communications director for the Manitoba Electronic Music Exhibition, or MEME. That's an electronic music festival that happens downtown. I was writing album reviews for a music website. I was interviewing people around the city for a now defunct website that I desperately miss called squarepegcity.com. And essentially the reason that I did that was I was like, okay, well, this degree is great, but like if I don't have anything that demonstrates my chops, I need to build that up. So I kept doing things like that after I graduated university. I worked at a couple of different agencies, and I will be honest with you, I was a terrible employee. I just hated it.
I identify with that a little too closely.
Right? Like I found that like I'm very efficient, right? Like I usually I can get through the majority of my pressing to-dos by about noon, and then the rest of my day is other things that I need to get to. But in a lot of especially more traditional agency models, you're just kind of a butt in a seat. And I also hate that. That's one of the reasons that Starling is and will always be 100% remote, is because I don't believe that someone's productivity and their value is determined by whether or not they're physically in the same space as you. So kind of wasn't loving what I was doing. And I happened to pick up a copywriting contract for it was this piddly amount of money. And my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, who has run his own business since he was 19, was like, well, Alyson, you could do this for a living. And I was like, hard no, this is not for me. I can't. The idea of leaving a secure every 2-week paycheck was really intimidating. And to his credit, he was like, well, how about this? Why don't you spend the next year building up your freelance business and then see how you feel? I went to a networking event that following a couple months later, and I literally walked up to the executive director of the organization who was hosting the event, and I was like, who's live tweeting this for you? I'm dating myself. Who's live tweeting this for you? And he was like, nobody. And I was like, you should let me do it. And so I got my first social media contract. And then over the next year, I scaled it to the point where I was making more freelancing than I was at my 9-to-5. So I left my 9-to-5 job, and I've been doing this ever since.
Okay, so you had more of a gradual crossfade between the full-time and the freelance.
Yes, it was very scary. I think because I struggled as an employee, I worried that I would not be effective in business.
Right.
Okay.
If you're like me, you had the note from bosses and supervisors before, it doesn't take direction well.
It's not even about direction. One of the things that I realized, the last job that I had before I started working for myself was in a very organized office.
Right.
And most of the jobs I had previously would have you job shadow somebody, you take your own notes, and there's just gaps in learning and process that I didn't really understand until I worked in this particular office with this office manager who was like, we have a checklist for everything. I've already done it. Here's why I'm doing it. Just go through the motions and ask me if you have questions. And it just completely changed the way that I thought about process and managing other people. And that is what I bring to Starling. There is nothing that my team do, except for maybe Google Ads. I know how to do Google Ads a little bit, but our Google Ads guy has been doing it since Yahoo, and I trust him. You know what I mean? But anything related to my areas of expertise, I have done already. Yep. I have developed the documentation. It's all bulleted lists with little comments from me, things like that, resources. And yeah, it's been really good. And I feel like it's one of the reasons why I was able to both scale the company as quickly as I was and also have a really high retention rate in terms of the people who work for me.
Okay, so that emphasis on documentation and explaining the purpose behind the process is definitely something that would serve well in helping to onboard new people, because without that, you're left going, okay, do something, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and exactly to that point, that's also the approach that I take when we bring on new clients. So we have a really rigorous onboarding process. And the client, when we sign with this is social media specifically. Yeah. When they sign with us, they spend the next 2 weeks to a month working directly with me. I have templates for everything. And the reason that I am so hands-on is because, one, I want to be able to give my team, all right, here are your marching orders. Here's why we're doing it this way. I've done the competitive research. I've compared against benchmarks. I've done the audit, the strategy development, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have a meeting with the client before we start even developing any content on their behalf, where we review all of these documents together so we can get on the same page. And kind of like you were just saying, like it's about having transparency and communicating what expectations are and articulating the thought process behind why we're doing something, instead of, like, I say to my clients all the time, I don't want your account manager sitting on Instagram and scrolling mindlessly. I want to know who are the target accounts you want to get in front of. If you have sales goals, who are we trying to reach out to? If you want to work with influencers, what are we doing to make sure we're developing relationships with them? And that has to be codified in advance in order for it to be effective.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we're going to come back to that in a little bit when we start talking about tactics.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back to the personal journey. You've mentioned before we started the recording that you went through U of W, and then that formed the foundation of the kind of work that you were doing. How does that influence the way in which you work with your team now, the way in which you go about doing the work?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't say my time at the University of Winnipeg necessarily influenced that directly.
Okay.
I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have a business degree.
Yep.
I read a lot of books on business and on leadership. So that's really informed how I like to lead. But the University of Winnipeg was really a lot of understanding language. One of my favorite courses that I took was one called Orality and Literacy. And basically the course curriculum was, we started when, like Greek times, before humans had a writing system. So how, like, this is getting a little bit off topic, forgive me. But my prof was like, you have to get this specific version of the Odyssey. No, because in university, sometimes you can get different versions. He was like, this is the one you need. It's going to suck and it's going to be really boring, because when, like Homer, he would go out and like entertain people. That was what he did. And if people are getting drunk and you're coming back maybe 2-3 nights in a row, you have to remind people who these characters are. So, as an example, there would be like Alyson, the chatty and excitable. Mm-hmm. Every time you mention Alyson, it's always Alyson, the chatty and excitable. And it gets so boring if you're reading it. But in a written system, you had to have rhetorical tricks to remind people who these characters are, what they're doing, and keep that narrative moving forward. And then we sort of, in that particular class, move forward into like things like political speeches and stuff like that.
Right. So in this context, we're talking about how the nature of the way we're communicating changes how we have to think about the communicating.
That's exactly right.
I want to segue directly into a strategy conversation here.
Let's do it.
Given that we have to change the way we talk based on where we're being seen, being heard, or being read, how do we pick strategies that fit those particular contexts? If you have a favorite of the social media platforms, can we discuss one of those here?
So I'm going to kind of do two, because I think it's a good difference. So if you think about like Instagram or TikTok, right? And then LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn.
But it's so different.
And that's like, so when you're thinking about how to develop a content strategy where you have to appeal to multiple different audiences on different platforms, like that is the most important thing, is how, like the expression, I'm sure you know this, I'm not sure if the people listening to, it's called mirroring. How do the people on those platforms speak, and how can you mirror that in a way that sounds authentic?
Yeah, the psychology behind it is often about people like what seems familiar.
Yep.
And if you're able to present yourself in a way that is familiar, is recognizable, feels like it fits within everything else around it in context, generally it's better perceived.
Absolutely. And I mean, it also gives people what they're looking for. Like people don't go on Instagram to be like, I can't wait to talk about business.
I bet you there are a few,
but
they're definitely in the minority.
But the vast majority of people are on a platform like Instagram because they want to be entertained. They want to discover new products. They want to find like dank memes. Interesting art.
Yeah.
Whereas LinkedIn is very like, so there's like, LinkedIn is B2B. It's business to business. Instagram tends to be more business to consumer, business to community. The word at the end changes a lot. I see it kind of all over the place. But like thinking about the intentionality behind why someone is on a social media platform and adapting the content that you are publishing to that platform is how you can create something that resonates.
Would it be accurate to say that it's just trying to match the value that the viewer is trying to get from their experience?
Yeah, everything that you do in marketing is about demonstrating value. What can the people who follow you get out of the follow and the engagement? Like, what are you, and not just like selling or trying to get donations or whatever the ultimate outcome is. Like, what are you providing to them that is entertaining, educational, informative, that makes them want to come back to your page over and over and over again?
I'm going to take a moment here to pull back the curtain because I feel like right now we are trying to do that, sitting here behind these microphones. Because your whole deal is informing, educating, and helping people with their social media. And as a part of that, if they can be taught to do it on their own, that's great. When they need something more advanced, they'll come to you.
Right.
And for me, it's trying to help social enterprises learn how to do their work better. And media and marketing is a part of that. And so in this moment, we are living this. It's a little bit meta, but
I love it. Go meta. That's terrific.
Let's talk about Instagram. Like, let's say we're a B2B company. We're trying to sell to other businesses, but we've been told Instagram is a place that we need to be spending some time. Let's say it's been assigned by a supervisor. How can we take something that might be a little bit mismatched and form it in a way that can make sense again?
Well, the first thing that you need to try and assess is who are the businesses that you are trying to connect with on Instagram? What are they sharing? What is it that you can provide to them that, again, like informs, educates, and entertains? It really like, what kind of value can you add to their feed that would make them think of you when they have the need that you provide?
Just become top of mind.
Just become top of mind. I mean, I say this all the time. Social media is like, if you think about the sales funnel, right? You have brand awareness at the top, and then at the bottom of the funnel is your conversion, right? So the top of the sales funnel is social media. And I say this to my clients, I'm like, look, you can definitely get business through social media, but it is a long tail return on investment. You're not just going to set up an Instagram account or like start, a LinkedIn company page, and all of a sudden leads are going to flood through the door. There's so much more behind it, and it does take time to build up that trust. Because people, and I'm sure we might touch on this, like behind every business is human beings. And human beings fundamentally want to work with other human beings that they like and trust and that they feel are experts at what they do. And, especially on a platform like Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, it's about demonstrating that expertise. But also, and I would say this especially about Instagram, LinkedIn, I've seen some dicey things on LinkedIn. I do love that platform. It's probably where I spend most of my time now. But on Instagram especially, you have to do that in ways that show, like, are you tapped into trends? Are you using the right amount of hashtags? And I mean, people who don't work in this industry don't know these things, but people who do also know it. And it's just showing that you are adapting your strategy to the ways the platforms are changing. And I know you want to talk about that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Is going to be reflected in the content that you share. So it's the good and the bad thing about working in marketing is that it's just shifting sands. It's just always shifting sands, right? But continually doing that and demonstrating like your expertise in those ways that I described is how you build those relationships over time.
Now, you said a phrase in passing that I feel like is one of those few things that doesn't really change, and that is know, like, and trust. It's a wonderful shorthand. It has some faults that if you get me sitting down and we talk for 2 hours, I can get through it. But it's a fantastic shorthand for people who aren't familiar with marketing. Could you go through what know, like, and trust means in your situation, in your context?
So know, like, and trust basically means so they know your brand. They have an idea of who you are, what your values are, what you bring to the table, your expertise. Like is, do they think you're good people? Are you entertaining? Are you the kinds of people that they feel like they could work with based on the other factor I just described? And then trust is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Do you seem authentic? Are you, like, I've always been a really big proponent, maybe because I've just been publishing content online for 23 years now, actually, more than half my life. But I'm a really big proponent of sharing what you know. It's one of the reasons that we still blog really aggressively because it demonstrates industry expertise. But beyond that, you're also empowering people. Like you said, not every single person who interfaces with something that Starling publishes or creates is going to become a client. That's not actually the goal. My view is that a rising tide floats all boats. And if I can just collectively bring up the knowledge that people have in my industry, yeah, some people are going to go like, oh, dang, like I can't do this on my own. Maybe I should reach out to Alyson and her team. But the vast majority of people are just going to keep coming back because we're empowering them. And that creates trust, which may not turn into a one-to-one relationship, but has the ripple effect that people learn to see you as somebody who is invested in other people and is trusting or trustworthy rather.
Mm-hmm. And I like the way you described the reason for publishing as the agency, because we have a very similar strategy at Strategy Made Simple. We've got the videos, podcasts, freely available things that are trying to help people get better at doing this work.
Yep.
I hope that 90+% of people that watch or read or listen to our stuff don't actually need to hire us. Because that means that we get to have an impact far beyond what we actively do day to day. And for the few people who, let's say they don't need it now, but in 5 years they do, then we've helped them get there. And then we can be our best help wherever they end up coming to us.
Absolutely. And kind of to your point, like marketing is such a nebulous and quickly shifting industry. And I was on a podcast recently and someone was like, what's your superpower? And it's just a weird question to ask somebody because like I don't want to fap on my own bad self too hard, but I really feel like I'm a very strong communicator and a writer, but what I'm really good at is taking complicated systems and processes that are overwhelming for folks and breaking them down into like snackable articles and bulleted lists and things like that so that you can come to our website and you can learn about like how AI is impacting, the world of social media and content creation in a way that feels understandable and not overwhelming, or, the differences between B2B and B2C content creation, things like that. Concepts that, you could go and spend like 12 hours going down a HubSpot rabbit hole, or we could just sum up, what we know in a way that is concise and easy to understand. No disrespect to HubSpot. I read HubSpot all the time. But like, those are the types of things that, I just have I have all this knowledge that's living in my brain, and being able to distill that down into pieces of information that can empower people that are easy to understand is something that I'm very, very proud of, and something that I'm grateful to be able to lean into to do as part of my role at Starling.
Well, let's talk about those shifting sands for a moment.
Sure.
We're going to finally bring it back. We're going to tie that thread on how social media changes over time.
Yep.
You said 23 years. Naturally, things have changed in that time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've gone from text first through search engine optimization is king to just content is king, publish as much as you can, and it'll work itself out. And things have continued to change since then.
Yes.
Not to mention the different platforms and their roles are shifting in the landscape of social media. First, I'd like to ask you, what's one of the biggest shifts you've seen? And then I'd like to get to specific platforms and how they're acting, or the things that they're incentivizing are changing.
Oh my goodness. That's, okay, buckle up. So I would say probably the biggest change that I have seen and has impacted me professionally is moving away from like microblogging services like Twitter and things like that, from more text-based to Instagram. Obviously, like, just blew the doors off. Because, I mean, I remember... when you were talking about changing things, I was going to be like, remember MySpace, Tom? His little thumbs up. Yeah. But, like Facebook used to be, and maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but like Facebook used to be, here is a bunch of albums you go out with your friends and you dump 40 pictures there and like hope no one sees how drunk you got because you were 21 or whatever. And now obviously it's kind of shifted, like we're a business platform and now they're not again, and things are changing, right? But Facebook had a focus on visuals, but they were personal. And when Instagram came around, it was just basically mobile only, and primarily still is. and the focus on visuals. I remember all those like weird, like everybody's pictures were all like blown out and sepia toned, and we all thought we were such cool artists. I'm sure we drove all of our photographer friends crazy. But that shift, and then the next couple of years was sort of this intersection of, okay, well, you have a picture, but now the caption is still really important, and now it's okay, well, you've got a really snappy video, and the caption doesn't matter as much, but you still want to have something there. And it just, it's constantly, and like every platform, like, I mean, LinkedIn is driving me absolutely bonkers with all of the different things that it's trying to do just to try and keep up. And I think LinkedIn should just stay in its own lane, personally.
I love how you just skimmed right over when Instagram introduced the ability to upload videos in addition to photos.
Oh, well,
that
I mean,
on its own.
yeah, I mean, like that, well, that's what I mean. Like the introduction of video in and of itself is one thing. And now, like, what's interesting too is initially, because what was it like? It was like 90 seconds to start, but platforms are moving towards longer form content. Like I just got a notification the other day that you can actually upload like multi-minute videos to Instagram, and TikTok is doing the same. Interestingly, I put this in my newsletter like maybe a couple of months ago. I feel like TikTok is probably moving towards a play on TVs because they've reintroduced what's it, landscape mode?
Really?
Uh-huh.
The identifying factor that was TikTok is the portrait video.
I think, and this is a little bit in the weeds, and this is just a prediction. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that what they're trying to do is move towards more long form, professionally produced content, because statistically speaking, landscape content tends to be better produced than like it's a dance. And TikTok is looking for ways to innovate on its audience and to move to different delivery platforms. And I could easily see them trying to move to like a streaming model on your TV at some point based on how this move works out. We will see. But why else would they do that? No one wants to look at a horizontal video on their phone anymore. It doesn't make sense.
They've trained people not to.
Exactly. It's so funny because I remember there used to be a conference here in Winnipeg called mBlog. And it was a conference for bloggers. And I attended a couple of years. I was on a panel. And one of the exercises one of the keynote speakers had us do was take pictures of each other. Like you picked a buddy sitting next to you, and everybody put their phone vertically. And she was like, no, you need it to be horizontal. And like how things have changed.
Oh, yes. I want to also go to how the platforms are now competing with each other. And a little bit, we're competing with the platforms. Mm-hmm. Because YouTube introduced Shorts as a play to try to counter what TikTok was doing. Mm-hmm. Meta introduces Threads as Twitter underwent its transformation and to try to scoop up that audience at the same time as Blue Sky and Mastodon and all the other niche sites. Mm-hmm. It seems more and more that social media is becoming a collection of the same things. It's
homogenizing.
Yeah,
it's homogenizing.
And within that, I've seen reports that when a feature like YouTube Shorts is first introduced, it's very heavily incentivized that it gets used because they push the attention that way. We're talking about algorithms. We're talking about the emphasis that each platform's putting on the different kinds and forms of content that are being published on their sites.
Yep.
Is there a way that a layperson can start to recognize when those shifts are happening and how to respond to them in time to actually be present when it's good?
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of a two-pronged answer. I mean, the first is just like pay close attention to what is popping up in your feed. I'll use Instagram or like TikTok, like your For You page or the search function in Instagram. Like not that long ago, there were 0 reels on that thing, but every like line or two, it's a big old rectangle of a reel. So you can kind of just visually get a sense of where things are going. But it also, I think if you're interested in like working the algorithm, I'm using air quotes here, it's important to actually stay up to date with what the platforms are doing. So a really good resource for folks who don't want to subscribe to my newsletter, even though you should, thanks, is Social Media Today. Socialmediatoday.com is a really, really good resource where they just, like, if you don't want to go down deep rabbit holes, you just go on the main page of their site and it'll tell you, like, TikTok is changing its algorithm to do this. Instagram is pushing this type of content. You know, you don't have to be me and go down a giant rabbit hole every day because it's my job to do that. But if you are even passively interested in understanding how algorithms work or the changes that are coming to different platforms without having to spend a bunch of time like scrolling aimlessly, a little bit of research goes a long way. But again, pay attention to the kinds of content that's in your feed. If you're noticing more video content, maybe start leaning into that. And one of the challenges with that, and I am getting a little in the weeds here, is that different updates roll out to different user types in different geographic areas at different times. Excuse me. So options that are available on my personal Instagram are not always available on Starling's business account yet because they prioritize different things. So that can be a little bit frustrating, but look for differences in the content that you're seeing, the options that are available to you if you're managing more than one profile. Like, are all of your sticker options the same? Are the text options the same? Things like that, because they don't always get rolled out completely like in synchronicity, I think. Words are hard.
Not everybody gets it at the same time.
At the same time. I was like, I can use a big word, and then I apparently could not. I'm a writer, I swear.
Speaking's different. Speaking's live. Okay, so just paying attention, doing a touch of research from the aggregators, the people who are doing news about social media. Yeah. That's a good way to figure it out without having to spend more than 5 minutes a day.
Absolutely.
So I want to bring it back to, let's say I've been assigned to run a social media account. And my goal is either sales or brand building.
Okay.
Which we might even need to explain what brand building is in the social media context. Mm-hmm. Actually, yes, let's start there and then we'll loop back to this.
Okay.
Brand building in a social media context. What does that mean for an organization?
So brand building essentially, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the process of doing that top of funnel, awareness work where you are helping people in your target audience who either need what you're providing or can help you provide it, depending on what your goals are, find you. Discover what it is that you do, see the value in the work that you do, and, convey stats, testimonials, what did I say before? Educate, inform, and entertain at that level. So that's brand building. That's just, people getting to know you. I was doing personal branding before personal branding, the term even existed, because
yep.
I'm
before influencer culture.
Oh my God, I'm only 36 and I feel so old. Like the internet makes me feel so old. But like when I was doing before I was doing personal branding, I was just like, I want to go to cool parties and get free stuff. That was my goal. But it's same but different. So, what are the outcomes that you want, and how can you portray your brand, your values, and what you do in a way that accomplishes those goals? So that's brand building. And then when it comes, sales is a whole other kettle of fish.
Okay,
right?
Then let's keep going on brand building. You've been assigned social media. You've been assigned the social media task for your organization. Let's say it's starting from scratch, and you need to start brand building. Is there a particular way in which you would recommend people go about it if it's a B2B company?
Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to develop your audience personas. So an audience persona is exactly what it sounds like. It's a fake version of a real person that you use to codify the needs of the people that you're trying to connect with on social media.
So basically, it's just trying to get the broadest description of this kind of a person. Like if this person is of a typical career stage, that would be an element in the persona.
So I would actually push back on that a little bit. Okay. I think they need to get pretty granular.
Okay.
So if you have like someone working in HR versus someone working in sales, or different decision makers within an organization, the VP of marketing is going to have, if they're involved with the decision, and the VP of sales is also involved, but then you have your salespeople who have to get it up the chain. Like each of those people should have a persona, and you want to codify what those different needs are, because your job as when you're brand building is to be able to tell essentially a tapestry of stories and convey value about your brand without alienating any of those specific people. So personas are kind of number one. The other thing that we look at and that I recommend people do is look at your content pillars. So content pillars, I said they're exactly what they sound like. They are the foundations, hence pillars, of what you are going to talk about on your social media profiles. So from a brand perspective, that could be, if you're like a nonprofit, that could be workshops and support services. That could also be, different events that you hold. That could be resources you provide.
Info sheets, white
Info
papers.
sheets, yeah. And each of those could be a different content pillar. You also want to have, demonstrating value. So stats around, where would statistics around the work that you do, how many people have you helped, how many events do you have, blah, 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 things like that.
If you make an impact report, you probably already have these things.
Exactly. And yeah, if you have existing documentation about anything that you're doing, usually you can fall back on that and find a lot of those things inside of that. But content pillars, usually there's 4, sometimes there's a couple more, it depends on the organization or the business. But figuring out what those different personas need to hear in order to take the action you want them to take, building trust, contacting you, etc. And then looking at your content pillars and going, okay, here is how the different pieces of what I want to say fit into these pillars, and then sort of linking that again or connecting that against what those personas need.
So far, we've talked about the customer personas. We've talked about the content pillars, and I'm pretty sure both of those apply to both, let's say, a brand building strategy and a sales building strategy. Where are some of the differences between those two?
Well, I mean, a sales strategy is definitely a lot more about direct relationship building.
Okay.
So, I mean, we work with a lot of sales teams. And one of the things that we do in conjunction with those sales teams is they, as an example, will send us lists of prospects that we need to engage with on social media. It is a little different than just regular brand building because it's not as aggressive usually. And this is just other agencies may do this differently. But what we do when we're working with the sales team is we'll say, okay, you send us your list of prospects. We'll start engaging with them on social media. We develop processes, and this is generally pretty bespoke to the sales teams. Different sales teams do things differently.
Naturally.
But at some point, we'll send them a DM or just, either with an offer or something about meeting. And depending on how that person responds, usually the salesperson, what that is for us is trying to get their contact info. Hey, we really love your content. We'd love to chat about an opportunity. Our email is this. Is this the best email to reach you at? We'd love to book a meeting, right? Versus just general brand building where you're not like, one of the things I think that people do when they conflate brand building and sales is people don't want to be sold at.
Yeah.
Like brand building is the process of generating, that trust like I was talking about, and not like nothing rubs people the wrong way than when you connect. LinkedIn is so bad for this. Sorry, LinkedIn. Nothing rubs people the wrong way like someone following you or connecting with you and right away they're like, do you want to come to my seminar? No, I don't. No, not at all.
Don't do that. Please don't do that.
No. And people don't want to feel like their relationships that they're building, whether that's with individuals or with brands, are merely transactional. Yeah, you want it to be transactional. You want them to do something, but you can't be overt about it. You can't treat them like a commodity. That's not like, people want to feel good about the brands that they trust and support or the organizations that they work with. And if you pitch them right away, then they're probably just going to unfollow you and then you've lost that lead.
So what you're saying is it takes a little empathy
to
understand where other people are going to be. And
just a little bit. A little bit.
It's almost like every single account is probably a person.
And I think that that's something that is really easy to get lost when we are doing this kind of work. But like on the end of every screen is a human being doing something. And I mean, like this comes back to like also like being nice to people on the internet. You know what I mean?
Just be a kind person all the way through.
Please just be nice.
It's anonymous enough. You can get away with it, but just don't.
Yeah. Don't be a troll.
All right. So then imagining we're trying to do more of that relationship building. That might be you're now following these accounts of these people that you hope to engage with, that you hope to do work with at some point. You've been commenting on their posts, not like a
bot,
not like a high school crush, but like a person you see their stuff every 2-3 days. You give it a little like once or twice a week. You leave a comment that adds something, and it isn't just for the sake of posting.
Yep.
And then you build up to, okay, they probably recognize me. I can send them a message, be like, hey, can I chat with you to see what we can do, if there's a partnership or a potential that we can help you. Is that generally a thing that you would recommend people start with in relationship building?
Whether you are a nonprofit or a business owner or whatever, everything comes down to relationships and brand building, and even sales. Like sales is all about relationships, Everything comes down to how someone feels about you, whether that's aggregate brand or, the human being behind it. And that's one of the reasons why when, we're talking to our clients, I say, like, you have to humanize your brand. You need to put people front and center, because people, like I said before, at the risk of repeating myself, like, they want to work with human beings. Do they seem like people you want to work with, and leading with the humans in your organization, demonstrating, like, one of my favorite things that we do with clients is just sitting people on their team down and saying, what do you love about what you do? Why do you work here?
Yeah.
And that kind of honest feedback, or in a nonprofit space, depending on the nonprofit, this doesn't always apply because some people do sensitive work. But getting people who have been impacted by the work that the organization is doing, sitting down and saying, I'm so glad I worked with XYZ organization. Here is how they've helped me. Testimonials go a very, very long way. But doing it from within the organization is something that a lot of businesses and folks in the nonprofit space just don't feel comfortable doing. And one of our jobs is to help bring them out of that shell and say, like, you do have to be front and center here. It's all relationships. It's people want to work with people. They don't want to work with, like, XYZ brand.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or nameless brand.
Yeah. And the social proof of the testimonial, the saying that other people trust us.
Yep.
We are real people, and other people that have said so. That's a big deal.
Yep.
Making it about the people, because when somebody starts working with you, they're not going to be working with faceless brand. They'll be working with someone.
Yep.
And if you can help them build that relationship before they sign on, it makes it easier, one, to earn the sale, and two, to actually work together, because you now have a relationship.
Well, and one of the things that I think is really important to highlight here is you have to ask for testimonials. And this,
Yeah, you do.
as an anxious person who started off, like, I still have imposter syndrome from time to time. But when I first started working for myself, it was, like, through the roof. And I remember reading a book, I don't even remember which one, but it was like the entire chapter was just literally hammering home, like, you have to ask for testimonials. So my process there is, when we've been working with a client, or if we wrap up a short-term project, I reach out to them and I say, hey, it was really great working with you, or we've been working together for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Would you feel comfortable leaving us a testimonial? It really helps the team and the business. And this is the trick. Write the testimonial you want them to give you.
Because, and then let them edit it.
Yeah, because people get all verklempt. They're like, oh, I don't know what to say. Wah. And if you give them the language, then they can just, and I say, like, you can use this, you can edit it. It's up to you. Here's the link to our Google review page. Make that easy. And then I just say, I'm going to use this in our social media. And 9 times out of 10, I get exactly the testimonial that I'm looking for.
Yep.
And it makes it easy, and people are happy to help each other out.
Just a hint. You can use the exact same technique when talking with the media.
Yep.
And you can use the exact same technique when talking with politicians. You can hand them the thing that you hope they will say, and they can just say yes, sign at the bottom, and they've agreed with it.
Yeah.
It becomes their words.
Yep. Giving people language that they can use is such an underrated thing to do. And I think it doesn't come naturally to folks because we don't want to insert our own perspectives in something that we feel should come organically from someone else. But that actually, like, I personally feel like that's almost like a selfish way to look at it. Like, well, why should I have to put in the work to make someone else's life easier? I just want their life to be easy, so they'll do what I want. I want that testimonial. Gimme.
Well, they can even point back to it and say, yeah, I agree with this.
Yeah.
This is how it felt to work with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing how allowing people to have the easy way makes life easy. For myself, I like to have a specific set of questions that I send when I'm dealing with testimonials, and this can come over time. It doesn't have to be all in one email or one conversation, but you can start with, okay, what is the problem you're dealing with? Okay, how does that feel?
Yep.
Because getting the story of, here's where I was, this is what it was like working with them, and here's where I am now, those are the things that make a 2-sentence testimonial into a story that people can relate to.
Absolutely.
So asking, how does it feel before you had our help? What was it like working with us? And then at the end, how do you feel now that the work is completed, or now that we're in the process?
I'm really glad that you use the word story, because that's all marketing really is. It's just fancy storytelling or short-term storytelling, but it's all stories.
It's stories that we tell about ourselves.
Yep.
It's stories that the brands tell about the work that they do. It's stories that we hope our customers will internalize about what it's like to work with us.
Well, and the interesting thing about storytelling is it creates opportunity, like relational opportunities. So if a potential customer identifies with a story that you tell and they see it in themselves,
Oh yeah.
that's gold right there.
I'm working on something, and I hope it's published by September. We'll say September. About how to help people see the value that you're actually making, about taking it from I do task or I do work to this is the value that you will get from working with us as a customer, helping you, the person who's trying to do some work, express that value through the customer's own language, the words that they would use to describe their situation and their hopes.
Yep.
Again, working on it, hoping it's going to be published in September. We've got a newsletter if you want to be updated when that happens.
Published in September, famous last words.
September gets so busy and it always moves so fast. I want to step into, let's step into the story of somebody who's now starting in social media. Let's say they're a 3-person team. They've got some work. They hope to have more. They're a brand that isn't quite established and they're starting to do social media. They're starting from big old 0 followers. How would you recommend someone in that situation starts thinking about building a brand on social media?
So I would say the first thing to do is read a lot.
Okay.
And I mean, I as I alluded to earlier, I'm a self-taught marketer. I spend a lot of time reading industry blogs and things like that. So the first thing you want to do is you want to figure out, okay, where are our target audience? Where are they spending time online? You don't have to be on every single social media platform, but think about the age of the people that you're trying to get in front of, what kinds of content they would be consuming, what feels aligned with your brand. If you aren't able to consistently create videos for TikTok, don't go on TikTok.
Yeah, if you can't commit and you can't get regular on pace with it,
Yeah.
then it's not going to work, regardless
Absolutely.
what marketing you're trying to do.
Exactly. So look at your own capacity as a team. Look at where your audience are active. And if you don't know where your audience are active, look it up. I am a firm believer that everything is Googleable. You can Google your way out of any problem. Believe me, I do it all the time.
It turns out most of problem solving is just finding the right sources to read at the right time.
Absolutely. So sort of starting from that place and then doing some of that like internal work like I talked about. So building out the personas. I'm a big fan of having a copywriting style guide, which is something that we develop for our clients when we start working with them as well. And that defines like your voices, your tone. So how do you want to come across? Are you playful? Are you a little more buttoned up? Are you working in a sensitive industry where there are specific words and phrases you cannot use? Codify that.
Give yourself a handbook.
Yeah.
It's so much easier.
It's so
if
much
you
easier.
can just have a checklist or a guidebook. Like you said earlier, documentation. It makes the work faster. It makes the work easier.
Yep. And it reduces, it makes it faster and easier, but it also reduces errors. Like having something that people can refer. And that's why I do all of that onboarding work at the outset. And then we go through it with the client and say, okay, does this sound right? Is this what you're thinking? Are there other, we're working with a nonprofit right now that's in a very sensitive industry. And there are definitely specific, I put together a hashtag strategy document for them. And they basically were like, nope, can't use 50% of these because the community isn't using them. They're using these instead. And I'm using a hashtag tool. I'm doing organic research on top of that. But I don't know what I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not working in that organization. So that's why we want to codify that with the client at the outset. And if you're working in a brand, you want to be having that discussion internally as well.
And I've always find in my work, the people closest to the problem understand that the best.
Yeah.
And so find people that represent the kind of people you're trying to reach. Just talk with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, I say to my clients all the time, I'm like, look, you guys are the experts. I'm like the marketing talking guy. To very poorly quote The Simpsons. I'm the law talking guy. No, I'm like the marketing talking person. You know your industry. Like we are coming to you for expertise, and having working with a partner, having all of that from the get-go means that we are able to do better work faster and there are fewer errors. But that also applies to internal teams too. If you're hiring if you're bringing someone on and you can say, here's our brand handbook. This is, go through it, let us know if you have any questions. That is a much better way than what I was doing when I was working in agencies, where it's like, why don't you just shadow me and take some notes and ask if you have a question? Like, you want to give people a strong foundation of knowledge and like process and documentation. So it just eliminates that guesswork, I feel like I got a little off topic there. My apologies.
No, that's totally fine. All of these topics circle around each other and they're all relevant. So
Bless marketing.
Yeah. It is a wonderful, beautiful mess of soft skills. You mentioned research and you mentioned trying to find the places where the people you're trying to reach are. I know there's a couple tools that I use to find that. SparkToro is great for finding specific phrases that people
I
associate
love SparkToro.
Amanda's articles are so good.
So good. Just nerding right out here.
Absolutely. If you're integrating it with a website, Moz or SEMrush are excellent to know that the site is actually working in the way you hope to. What are some of the other tools you use?
I mean, those are kind of the big ones. We use we use this piece of scheduling software called Buffer.
Okay.
I'm a very big believer. I don't want like a tool that's like, I do everything for everyone. I use a tool called Keyword Finder. I used to, CoSchedule used to have this headline editor that used to be free. That is not anymore, but we still use it. Have you ever used that before?
I have not, but it just makes me sad when things that were good are less good for monetization reasons.
There's an expression that the author Cory Doctorow coined called inshitification. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast.
We'll let it slide. We're 50 minutes in. If people are this far in, they're good. He spoke here in Winnipeg recently, and it was excellent.
Yeah.
But the general thought is, online platforms are recently getting worse as they need to find a way to profitability, and it means serving users less and serving money more.
Absolutely. So I would say, I've used Mod, you say SEMrush, I say SEMrush. I don't know which one it is. I've heard both.
SEMrush is faster to say.
I use a tool called Phantom Buster that also helps with a lot of outreach and stuff like that.
Okay.
Some of our clients use it to amplify their sales outreach.
We should go back on each of these tools and say exactly what they do so people know which one they actually need to look up.
That's true. Okay, what else? I talked about Buffer, which is a scheduling tool. We've briefly touched on Starling.social. We used to use reporting aggregator tools, and as social platforms have changed, one of the biggest gripes that I have about social platforms changing is they often will change their API access or their application program interface access. And for your listeners who don't know what that is, API access refers to how different pieces of software talk to each other and the level that they're able to look at each other's data.
If you've ever set an auto scheduler to make a post, that scheduler is probably plugging into the API to make that post.
That's exactly
or
right.
to pull the stats afterwards.
Yeah. And so as an example, like I used to use, I can't remember what it's called. I used it like 8 years ago, and it was this really phenomenal reporting tool. And I just plugged in every client's information, and it spun out not just some charts, which we don't do at Starling anymore, and I can talk about that if you'd like, but also takeaways. Like it actually would say, this platform is doing X amount better than it was last month. And it was just super easy and like just no stress. And then it went away. Just went away.
Oh,
went
that
away.
sucks.
Yeah. What else do we use? I should totally be able to think about this.
This is fine.
Okay.
If you think of them later, you'll probably have a blog post you can send me and then I'll link to it.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. I want to bring us back to the situation at hand. Let's say I'm somebody who knows how to handle a camera and I can do some writing.
Okay.
I have, again, 0 followers. How do we get from 0 to some?
Well, the first thing you need to do is spend time engaging on that platform. Give people a reason to follow you. So publish regularly. Each social media platform has different, I think Instagram is like 1 a day, but no more than it's like 1 a day minimum, no more than 3. Publish every day if you can, kind of thing. This information is in Google. You can Google these.
and surprisingly, you will find conflicting information on every single one of these platforms.
Well, yeah. And I mean, kind of to that point, what is going to work for your brand is not necessarily going to work for other people's brands.
Yeah.
So sit down and go, okay, what is the bandwidth that we can confidently deliver on consistently? So start publishing your content and then identify the types of accounts that you want to be engaged. You want to follow you and follow them first. Go engage with them. Show that you care about them first, and then keep publishing content that shows them why they should follow you back. So that's organic. That's, the unpaid part of that. If you have an advertising budget, obviously you can run. I like to start with boosted posts versus like a full-blown campaign. Don't go into Meta Ads Manager at the outset if you're new.
It's a great way to lose money before you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I ran some ads for myself when I was first trying to figure it out, and just useless. I sucked. That was like in my first year. I tried running some ads for Starling, and I was just like, I don't have a hot clue what I'm doing. I took a really, really good course from a company called Hatch London years ago now, but it really set the foundation for how I think about running social media ad campaigns like through Meta Ads Manager. If you can take a course that breaks this down, I strongly recommend it. Shameless plug, I actually am going to be delivering a Meta Ads course through Volunteer Manitoba in the new year. So
is that in person or virtual?
I believe it's going to be virtual just because a lot of the attendees are in remote parts of the province. I think I forget.
This is fantastic because if it is virtual, that means people from anywhere can sign in.
Yep. But yeah, so running ads, I like to start with boosting posts that are, you can set the demographic details, so age, geographic, what are they interested in, things like that.
The first moment you open up one of these back end ad platforms, you're going to realize just how well tracked you are.
Oh my God, are you ever? And it's ridiculous the amount of data that anybody has on you, especially someone like Facebook or someone like Google. Like, goodbye.
Yeah.
They know everything.
So, okay. We're posting regularly. We're on a cadence.
Yep.
We're posting at let's say 4 times a week, because once a day feels a little overwhelming, but like 4 times a week is manageable. I can pre-schedule that. I can do some batching. I can do the work all at once and schedule it for future. So let's say we're up to 100 followers. Okay. And how do things change when you start actually having followers?
Well, I mean, you're ideally going to get more engagement on your content, which is so the way that social media works and the way that algorithms work is it snowballs. So the more people that engage with your content, the more because algorithms aren't smart. It's just code. Sorry, my cats are running around.
Might hear a little thumping in the background.
Yeah. They're not smart. They're just looking at, okay, so, this post has 50 likes, got a bunch of comments on it. Obviously, people want to see this, and so it has a snowball effect over time. So the more people that like and engage with it, the more people that are going to do it, and that actually has like a backspill effect onto the rest of your content. This is why running contests can really go badly for some brands. I wrote a blog post on this a couple years ago, but I'll give you the TL, the too long didn't read. A lot of brands and organizations will run contests where they'll be like, I'm going to give away cash.
Oh no.
Or I'm gonna give away
Amazon
something.
gift cards.
Yeah, something like that. And when you do that, I'm going to use Instagram specifically. When you do that and you say, okay, follow, share, comment, etc., and your engagement goes way, way, way up, that's great. Hooray. You might get a bunch of new followers. You hopefully are. You get a bunch of new followers, your content gets engaged with, your contest ends. Now you have a bunch of followers who don't care about your content anymore and aren't going to engage with your content. And the algorithm isn't smart enough to know, they did a contest, whatever. The algorithm looks at it and goes, well, now their content was valuable, but now it's not. So I'm not going to show it to people anymore. So it actually can have a really detrimental effect if you don't do this right.
Yeah. All the algorithm sees is a bunch of followers that really don't care about what you're posting. And 100%. So it's going to show it less to everyone. A little bit of experience on this, actually.
Oh, yeah.
In order to deal with stress of buying a house, I started up an online dice shop, as one does.
As one does.
And as a part of that, I found that running contests was a good way to get some of that initial bump of attention. But the way we did it was we always were giving away a relevant product. We were giving away dice sets. So the people that were interested in winning were the people that would be interested in what we're doing anyways.
Exactly.
We weren't gathering a bunch of followers from general population. We were getting the people we wanted to reach.
Mm-hmm.
And so within that, we also laddered that into getting newsletter subscribers, trying to transfer them between platforms.
Yep.
To try to, keep them engaged.
Do you like dice? Subscribe now.
Exactly. Or get an extra 10 free entries if you subscribe to the newsletter.
There you
or
go.
if your email's on the list there.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, we were able to make something that functioned without bloating the subscriber list with people who were not interested.
Oh, I'm so glad you used the word bloat. I was regretting not using it earlier, and I was like, missed opportunity. But that's exactly what you're doing. You're artificially inflating your numbers and just bloating it up for essentially no return at the end of the day.
Speaking of artificially inflating numbers, which numbers are useful to watch?
This is a slightly spicy take. Followers don't matter that much. I would rather have 1,000 actually engaged subscribers or followers or whatever than 50,000. This is one of the reasons why I feel very strongly about never buying followers.
Don't do it. It's not worth it. Follow for follow isn't worth it. Never buy followers, never buy likes.
Thank you. Oh my God. There's nothing more irritating than when I look at a company's, especially something like local, and I see they've maybe got 12 posts, but they've got 50,000 followers. And I'm like, get out of here. Like, it's so true. It's just ick. But so the metrics that you really want to pay attention to are your impressions, your reach, and your engagement, right? So I think I'm going to get this right. I need a little more coffee, but your reach is the total amount of people who have seen a individual post or the aggregate of your posts. Impressions are the individual eyeballs that have seen your post, and then your reach might be 100,000 people, but you might have had maybe
a million.
A million.
So on average, each person reached has seen 10 things.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And then your engagement rate compared to both of those things. So looking at the total amount of eyeballs on your posts compared to the amount of people that have actually taken the time to do something with it and didn't just scroll on by. Mm-hmm. Looking at your engagement rate is a very good way, especially in aggregate, but also on a per post basis, is a very good way to determine what do people care about? Are people liking? Are they commenting, saving? Are they sharing it on their stories? Things like that. That, in my view, is the most important way to determine value and what you can lean into.
Mm-hmm. And especially since if we start mixing organic and paid, because both of them are valuable strategies, if you start mixing them, you have to make sure you keep track which ones were organic and which ones were boosted.
Yep.
Otherwise, you will be vastly disappointed with your organic metrics because it'll just look worse if you don't remember that some of them had a little paid bump.
Oh, the amount of times that I've had to. So I kind of alluded to this earlier. So at Starling, we don't send over charts and graphs. We provide monthly reports for each of our clients for the previous month. They are handwritten. So we have a major activity section, we have a takeaway section, and it's a bulleted list of here are the posts that performed well, here are the metrics for it, here's what we think, versus it's a chart, But the amount of times that we have had to say in our reports, our numbers are down this month because we're not running this campaign anymore, because you have to remind people, because even when we do, and this is we always provide reports. This is a core part of our service.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing social media or pay-per-click ads or just straight advertising with social media ads with us, you get a report for that activity for the previous month, every month. But it really goes, it's such a reminder that most people don't ever read the report because they'll go in and they'll just look at a stat and they're like, why did it go down this month? And I'm like, because you're not spending $1,000 to boost these posts anymore.
I see a big red number beside my impressions. It says it's down 50%.
Yeah, no kidding. What did you think was going to happen? But really I really feel like a lot of marketing is just adjusting expectations and constantly reminding people that things change.
Yep.
And
I'm going to take that to segue back to the situation. We were at 100 followers. We're starting to engage with people on their posts. We're trying to build the brand. We're trying to connect with people. Let's say we've jumped from 100 followers and that level of engagement to 10,000. How does the way we interact, how does the things that we do change?
So if you're talking about outbound engagement,
Yeah.
I think it's really useful to go through your follower list on a semi-regular basis and identify like who are some of the key accounts, who is engaging with you, what what kinds of relationships are they looking for, what do they do, can you bring something to them that is useful or vice versa. And going through your following list and just like looking there, there's a tool that we use for this, and I can't remember the name of it right now. I'll send it to you after.
Absolutely.
But looking at those accounts and reprioritizing essentially. Like I said, you don't want, if you are the account manager or anyone else, you don't want to just be scrolling for no reason. You want to be able to have. Twitter used to be really good for this, where you could create lists of people and organize them that way. And I really miss being able to do that. That made our job so easy. But essentially doing that work, you might need to do it on a spreadsheet, which I hate. I hate spreadsheets. Oh my God, I hate
They're
spreadsheets.
so helpful though.
Oh, I listen, they have their purpose sometimes. But as a writer, I prefer a document with a bulleted list over and like takeaways over like, here's a campaign in a spreadsheet. Do you want your eyes to bleed?
We'll agree to disagree on this.
We can, you know what? If it's color coded, I'll give it to you.
Perfect.
Every marketer is different.
Yeah. So you're talking about like retargeting, refocusing the campaign, probably looking at your profiles and the target customer profiles that you've made.
Yep.
Maybe revising them
Yep.
given the new information you have. And then does it change the amount of personalization you give?
I think it really depends on the brand and your goals. I would say being personal is always the thing that you should lead with. Like sound like a human being. If the brand, like, it's so funny because so often brands and I'm using brands and organizations as two separate entities because I'm trying to differentiate between like business and organization. But a brand is a brand is a brand. Everyone's a brand.
Yeah. Whether they realize or not.
Absolutely. Hence personal branding.
Oh, yeah.
Unpopular opinion.
I actually love it. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I love it. Love that. No, I think that like, you might want to step up the amount that you are engaging. There are engagement strategies that you can use on a per platform basis. I'm not going to go too deep into them here because we could be here all day. I'm getting the sense that like we are very chatty folks today.
Yeah.
But there are different engagement strategies per platform. And when you do the work of going back and revisiting what your goals are, who you're trying to get in front of, what worked, and adapt that to your existing strategy as you start to scale up. Depending on the brand, like it looks different, a little bit different for everybody. But those are kind of like the core tenements that I would recommend doing. Just go back and review it. Always stay personable. Look at what's worked best,
I'm going to add to that. Don't imitate the big brands.
Oh my God, no.
Because they're playing a whole different game.
You're not Wendy's. You are not No Name.
Yeah, don't try it. Because they're operating at a whole different scale. They have teams on teams working on this stuff.
Yep. And also, like, kind of to that point, don't compare yourself to brands like that.
No, it's not worth it. It's not helpful.
Comparison is the thief of joy, and social media may not be for everybody, but if you are a person working in marketing, I would hope that at least you enjoy some of your job, and the minute you start comparing yourself to another brand, you start getting down on yourself and your creativity goes away, and it's really hard to be creative when you feel like you're just trying to like keep up with an unattainable goal.
Find the things that are fun in it.
Yeah.
Like find the piece that you love that you're good at and sneak that into every post you make. It's so much easier to be fun if you're actually having fun when you're making the thing.
Preach.
Like even if it's something that you have to deliver for the boss or for a different client that has different demands than you wanted to do, find your fun in it.
Yeah.
I want to shift to purpose businesses now because that's the primary group that I'm working with. They're businesses that are doing good, that are trying to change culture, that are trying to affect individual lives and the broader society around us.
Yep.
How can they demonstrate the social impact value that they're making without it feeling fake?
I mean, if you have an impact report, just pull from your impact report. You've already made it. Sorry, I'm just going to move my cat.
Cat's trying to climb into my bag.
We keep it very real around here at Starling.social. I mean, keeping it real is just being authentic to the brand itself. One of the things that I love about content is, and we talked about storytelling earlier, right? Like, what can you share that tells a story about the impact that you're making? Is that interviewing folks that you've helped, sharing testimonials, like everyone loves a stat.
With a good little graphic behind
Good
it.
little graphic.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. You know what it is because a statistic is a shortcut to telling a full story, and people don't have to, like, no offense, they don't have to read your whole impact report.
As long as that stat is explained with a little story.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, don't just be like 26% and post that or whatever it is. Just out of context. Just out of context. It's fine. But no, like, have a little story if you're on, like, do a carousel post or explain it in the caption a little bit or something like that. But yeah, being able to share photos from an event that you have that shows that it was really well attended. Or, like I said, I feel like I come back to testimonials and things like that a lot, but like and if you can get humans on video or even a picture of somebody, like that is like gold when it comes to marketing. But yeah, demonstrating impact, like I said, comes down to telling stories about the work that you do, using statistics and testimonials, and also, like, if there are news articles or there's other supporting pieces of, like, press or documentation that speak back to you, like, lean into that. Let them do the work for you.
And, like, things that trusted outside sources have said about you, things that are verifiable, help to make that impact real instead of potentially a greenwashing or a social watching kind of situation.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah.
Because there are far too many bad examples of that.
Well, and one of the things that, you and I kind of touched on greenwashing earlier. So greenwashing is... I
think that was before the mics were on.
Before the mics were on. So greenwashing is essentially the process of being like, we're an eco company, we're eco-friendly, but yeah, like, you really aren't. And it's performative marketing, It's kind of like when brands throw, like, the LGBTQ logo over or the colors over their logo for June without doing any meaningful work. Like, it's a horse of a different color.
Yeah.
So if you are going to lean into something that is values based, like, trying to go green and, be a more sustainable, like, eco-friendly brand, if you want to support, like, queer folks through the work that you're doing, like, actually articulate what that looks like. For Pride Month this year, our senior account manager, Alicia, who's a total dynamo, I believe the title of the post was, like, 8 non-cringy ways to celebrate Pride Month. And because
fabulous.
I loved it. Like, I when we were talking before we started recording, we had a client a couple of years ago who was like, okay, well, what are we going to do for Pride Month? We got to do something for Pride Month. And we gave them, like, a list of ideas. We were like, put your pronouns in your email. Make a donation to, a resource center like Rainbow Resource Center or Sunshine House. Engage in sensitivity training. Like, there's lots of different things that you can do. And they were like, nah, we're just going to make our logo rainbow.
Make the logo rainbow.
And spoiler alert, it didn't go well. And they came back to us and they were like, what do? Why? And we were like, for literally the reasons we told you.
Because you can't just jump into that without already having shown that either you are a part of that community or you've done something with or for that community.
Or you are doing something.
Yes.
It's an opportunity to say, we're looking to do better. Here are the initiatives that we are engaging in that are reflective of this values change. But don't just like slap a logo color up there or something like that, or like one of those borders on Facebook and be like, day's done. We're good.
Yeah, pair it with action.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. It's a good way of saying the long thing I said a short way. I told you I talk forever.
It's the luxury of being in the interviewer seat. So I want to shift gears entirely for a moment.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of the people that are listening are going to be people who have very little experience with content, very little experience with media production. So when starting out, what level of polish is appropriate? Because we all see, and a lot of us have good ideas of what a good post looks like. So when starting out, we are usually not there yet.
Yeah.
How do we accept what we're capable of, and then?
So there is actually a very good quote from one of my all-time, like, favorite humans, Ira Glass, who is the host of This American Life, and he did an interview a number of years ago where I'm gonna butcher what he's saying as I try and paraphrase it. But essentially what he said was, when you are first starting out, your tastes are better than your ability. And you have to give yourself grace to kind of suck as you keep working towards the level of your taste, and you will get there over time.
It is an amazing inspirational quote that...
Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Absolutely. I think I found out about that one from a graphic novel version of interviews.
Oh, no way.
With big communicators like that. I think it was called Across the Wire.
Oh, interesting.
And it goes over the big media producers, how they understand media and the production of it.
Neat.
Yeah. The idea of like, you're going to hit the deadline and you're just barely going to make it. The idea that your skills are like that midpoint of a painting where like there's color there, but everything kind of sucks all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the midpoint of a painting. Makeup is the same way.
Oh yeah.
If you're, oh yeah, because like from a female perspective, like I put on makeup every day. It's like how I commute. And if I'm doing anything other than like the basic makeup that anyone who's seen my videos knows, it's a little eyeshadow, a little eyeliner. But if you're doing like a face, or you're putting on like something for a production, there is a midpoint where you are like, I look like a, no disrespect to clowns, like a clown, or it's just terrible. But
Yep.
But one of the nice things that wasn't available to me when I was starting out is, this was another tool I wanted to mention, is Canva. Bless Canva.
Canva is wonderful. I have some quibbles with some new features, but Canva,
overall, pretty good.
Canva, templates, starting point, lovely.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're just starting out and you're like, because I remember trying to make things in like InDesign and Photoshop, and I used to know how to use Photoshop, but it took forever. And yes, using a tool like Canva will mean that some of the templates you're using are a little bit samey.
Yep.
But it does allow for a pretty surprising amount of personalization and customization if you just play around with it a little bit.
If you take a look at the Strategy Made Simple YouTube channel, a good number of our thumbnails are made on Canva.
There you go. Nice little upsell there.
You gotta tell people where the other info is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that tool is a great way to get started. Like if you're starting on Instagram and you just want to have some graphics to go with the stats and the story that you've been building.
Yep.
It's a great way to plop that chart in there. You add a little bit of texture behind it, a little bit of text, and you've got a decent post.
Yep. And what's nice about it too, I don't know if this is available with the free version, but they do have a pretty robust stock library as well. We use that one, but we also have an iStock subscription because we fancy and we need it. But Canva's got a lot of really good resources if you're first starting out and you're like, I don't know how to make a post. What do?
Mm-hmm. For images, Unsplash is also great
Unsplash
for a
is great.
lot of royalty-free images that you can use publicly. And if you want to have icons, Noun Project is excellent.
Oh, I love Noun Project.
Yep.
Unsplash used to be a Winnipeg-owned company, hey? They got bought out, but they used to be... I ran into the guy who like owned it at like a networking event. Of course it's Winnipeg.
Cool. No wonder it was free to start.
Of course it was.
Oh yeah. So let's back to being a social media manager who's just struggling through that beginning portion where nothing is quite as good as we want it to be. How do you get from I've got this thing I made to I'm comfortable posting it?
I mean, you're probably not going to feel comfortable posting it at the outset if you feel like it's not at the level of your taste. But the unfortunate thing is just get over it. I'm going to give you an example. When Reels and TikTok started really taking off, I was really uncomfortable being in front of a camera. I'm a writer. I like to hide behind my screen. And I remember the first couple of Reels that I shot, and I was like having heart palpitations. I was like, this is garbo. Like, I feel dumb. I don't like this. My editing was trash. And like, you just get better. You just like Ira Glass said, you just have to keep doing it and push through the uncomfortable feelings and learn as you go, right? Like, you're not going to get better by not trying.
Yep. And one of the benefits of being new in it is that most people won't see your bad stuff.
Yeah.
You get to work through how to do it while you're invisible.
Yep.
It's a mixed blessing and curse to see like 10 impressions on a post that you're not proud of. But that means that only 10 people saw it. You got the practice in. You did the full process. You got to publishing. and now you get to use what you learned in the next one.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great lesson to learn. It's a little bit of humble pie.
Yeah, for a long time.
For a long time. But eventually you get to a point where I'm like, where you're going to be like, you know what? I can make this dumb dancing TikTok. I will not. I will never do a dumb dancing TikTok because my move is the fish stick, which is standing still because I have no dancing moves. But I can lip sync to stupid things now in a way I could not.
Very nice.
Yeah, so, milestones.
Yep. I want to shift to a different tactic that I've personally found useful, and in the hopes that other people might find it too. Finding partnerships or doing posts with other people. For example, right now, we're recording a conversation together. Neither of us have to hold the whole thing. Yeah. And so it's a lot easier because there's a partner involved. In any kind of post, this can be done. Do you have any examples of when it was done?
I mean, this is kind of a dumb one, but so at the start of every week, I sit down and I personally write our Starling.social's newsletter. I want to preface this by saying I'm going to use Instagram as the example here. Instagram gives you the opportunity to invite collaborators. I think this is what you're referring to.
Yes. Sure. It works the same function.
Yeah. So collaborators on Instagram, when you publish something to your timeline, it will, if that collaborator accepts your collab request, it will also show up on their timeline. So if you are going to engage in this type of content strategy, you want to make sure that you are working with people who are also going to be accessing your target audience. So people who follow you, and you want to access the people who follow them, good partnership opportunity. To bring it back to myself, I write my newsletter every Monday. This week it was a Tuesday because nobody wants to read a newsletter. I'm sorry, Matt, if this is you. Nobody wants to read my newsletter on a Monday morning. They need to do their work. So I always do it on the second day of the week. Then I shoot a little promo video saying, like, here's what's in our newsletter, become a subscriber, blah, blah, blah. So I publish it from Starling.social's Instagram, and then I add myself as a collaborator, and I accept my own collab requests.
No, it's great.
And if you're working in marketing, there are memes that pop up every so often of like social media managers liking their content from different accounts, and it's such a normal thing that we all do.
Obama giving Obama a medal.
Yes, that's exactly it. I love that meme so much.
But beyond that, it's, to me, that's bringing the person who wrote it in.
Yeah.
It's just saying, yeah, I'm the one who did this.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I did it. It's my baby. Here I am. But it also means that, because I get a fair amount of Starling grows, but I also get new followers and people who follow me, and I want them to know that I am doing this thing. My business is cool. Subscribe to my newsletter. You know what I mean? It's just a bit of a double whammy there. But from a brand, from a not just me perspective, like I said, that doing a collab post or working in partnership with other, brands, organizations, what have you, as long as they are aligned with your goals and are able to help you access a broader, segment of your target audience, go for it. Just make sure that when you do it, you have both identified what it is you are doing in advance.
Clear expectations.
Oh my God, yes.
Is the core of business as far as I'm concerned at this point.
And this also goes for working with influencers.
Yep.
If you want to work with influencers, you need to find out first what their budget is if they have one, and then you need to set the expectation for what you want from them. So do you want a static post? Do you want a reel, a story? Do you want them to use any specific hashtags? Is there verbiage? You have to tell them what you want them to do, or it's going to suck.
Same goes for sponsoring events.
Yep.
Same goes for working with a partner on distribution or creation. Because if you've got a partner and let's say you're both supposed to write half of an article, you better be clear about what their half is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Expectation setting is a superpower.
Yeah.
Just communicate. Write it down.
It's almost like it's hard and it's worth the effort.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? One of my absolute favorite quotes is from David Axelrod, who was I forget what his role was in the Obama White House, but as they were trying to pass the Affordable Care Act, he turned around to, Obama was like, oh, what is it? Can't even do it. It's so hard. And he turned around to him and he was like, hard things are hard. And I actually have that on one of those little plaque boards in my office. And I look at it all the time and I'm like, hard things are hard, but they're worth doing.
Most things worth doing are
Yep.
hard.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've talked about a lot of things. We went down a lot of rabbit trails.
We sure did.
Is there something that we missed that people who are new to this field should think about or be aware of?
I get asked this all the time, and I feel like this is a slightly spicy take, but for the love of God, please work on your writing.
Yeah.
The amount of folks who want to get into marketing and social media because of a lot of other creative elements of it, great, good. But if you want to be a truly effective marketer, being able to communicate, to write, to understand how to write a call to action that actually gets people to do what you want them to do isn't just A/B testing until the end of time. It's actually understanding how people want to be spoken to. Read Strunk and White. Read The Elements of Style. It is the boringest book on the planet. But if you are interested in becoming an effective writer and communicator, in a time, honestly, we didn't even talk about AI or anything like that, but I firmly believe that high quality human generated writing is going to be something that continues to set people apart as as AI continues to flood the marketplace with, there was an expression that I heard on a podcast the other day that I can't remember, but essentially it's just low quality content. It all kind of sounds samey. There's a post on my blog about it where I actually share, if you want to look at content and try to be able to tell whether or not it was generated by ChatGPT, I actually have examples of that. Let's be real, guys. No one is sitting down to write, in today's fast-paced world. No one says that.
Nope.
No one's writing that. That's a robot wrote that one. But yeah, learning to write, I would say, and becoming confident and clear in your communication, not just as a marketer, but your emails will be better. Your, the ads that you run will be better. Your press releases will be better. Anything that you're doing that falls under that umbrella will be elevated if you focus on copywriting as a skill.
I'm going to go beyond that. Even if the content you make is not written, the writing is what makes it sing.
Yeah.
Because if you can write well, your videos will be clearer.
Yes.
If you can write well, then the specs you send to a graphic designer will be better.
Mm-hmm. And
so, to me, writing is the core, and self-admittedly, I don't spend enough time on it, and I wish I had more time to do it. And if we want to talk about AI, we'll have to come back.
We can do another episode. It's cool.
I've got things to say, but I don't think it's worth the time.
Well, as we know, I have many thoughts on things, so
yes.
Stay tuned. You can find them somewhere on my socials, I'm sure.
Speaking of socials, where can people find you?
So if you want to connect with me personally, you can find me at Alyson. I am old enough that my handle is the same on all my platforms. It is spelled ALYSONSHANE. And if you would like to connect with Starling.social, it's STARLING, like the bird, SOCIAL, like social media. And we are, now that we're not on Twitter no more, we're the same on every social platform.
Very nice.
Yeah, I love the consistency.
All right. So thank you very much for coming on and talking with me. This has been a lot of fun.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you for inviting me on. This has been great.
And thank you for listening. If you appreciated this, please share it with somebody else. Here at Strategy Made Simple, we're working towards making marketing more accessible for social enterprise and to help you build up your business so you can make more impact. If you need any help with that, from strategic planning to business planning to one-on-one coaching, please let us know. info@strategymadesimple.ca is our email, and you can reach us on LinkedIn at Matthew Rempel or at Strategy Made Simple, the organization page. You can also consider coming and joining us at Twine. Twine.community is a place for social entrepreneurs and people involved in social business to come together, talk, and learn from each other. I hope you'll join us, and there's a link in the description. Again, that's Twine.community.